Hey everybody, I'm Elysia Buss, host of Horsepower Empowerment Through Connection, and today I have the pleasure of getting to interview Stacey Garcelon at Anam Cara Stables, Horses Healing the Human Spirit, located in LaPorte, Indiana. And Stacey and I have been chatting for I feel like 6 months since kind of like the beginning of the pandemic, and we're like, yeah, we should do this thing, and then life always it gets busy. But Stacey, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm really excited to interview Stacey today because she does something that we haven't actually gotten to hear very much about, and she does EDMR with horses. Did I mix up the letters again?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah.
every time. EMDR. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's like, I think I just miss electronic music too much and it just sticks in my brain all the time. So, but Stacey, could you tell the audience a little bit more about what that is?
Yes. EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And I do that primarily in my talk therapy work in my office, but I also have incorporated that a little bit in with the equine assisted psychotherapy out in the arena. So I will be incorporating it more because it's really, really effective. So what it does is it creates an environment that allows your brain to do what your brain does naturally. And what that is when you sleep every night, you go into rapid eye movement sleep and your eyes go back and forth, right? So in EMDR, we recreate that bilateral stimulation while we address a disturbing event. And then we address the negative core belief that's associated with that event. So some common things are, I'm not lovable, or I'm unworthy, or I have to be responsible for everything. And there's quite a few negative core beliefs. And then we start to address that disturbing incident and that negative core belief, and then we replace that as it desensitizes that incident, we replace it with a positive adaptive belief. So it's not always 100% exact opposite of now I am lovable. It can be incremental to like, I'm okay as I am, right? So what that does is it helps desensitize the disturbing belief or the disturbing incident, not that changes the memory of it, but it does help make it more of just a memory and not an activating event. So what I mean by that is it becomes something that happened and it was unfortunate, or it still is disturbing, but it's something that happened and not something that now I still have a physiological response to. Right.
Fascinating. So less of a trauma response. So you're taking that reactivity out of it. Yep. How do the horses respond to that when you're doing it out there?
The horses are amazing because what we discovered is that the horses are very, very present with us. And when when clients tend to disassociate, and when they start to, this is before we implemented EMDR, but when they disassociate, the horses will actually leave. They're like, oh, our job is done. And then when the client comes back, they'll re-engage. And so that was fascinating. Yeah. And then when we incorporated EMDR in with the horses, we had the client actually draw paint on the horse, their trauma incident, their scene, what was disturbing for them. And then we did we put the tappers in her pockets so she could tap through the negative core belief. And then she could take it off of the horse and replace it with her positive adaptive belief. And so the horse was present the whole time. It was really, really fascinating. And what brought to the client through that was the co-regulation from the horses, and their breathing and their heart rhythm could help sync with hers. So she was able to co-regulate and then have that nervous system response of, oh, I can now rest and digest, right? So that's what the horses bring to the process.
That's great. Can you share a profound story with us of somebody that you've treated, like what they were struggling with and how that changed when working with the horses?
Absolutely. In fact, it's going to be one of my very first clients that we worked with. And we had been working with her for quite some time, and her self-identified treatment goal was to be able to feel her feelings, right? She had been long history of trauma, and had been disassociating for a long time, like her whole adult life. And so she couldn't identify. My battery's getting low. Let me grab my plug. Well, let me just talk through it. So she wanted to feel her feelings. And so what we did was we had an exercise. We had seen her weekly for about a year, and she was making some progress. And this particular exercise, we had labeled stuffed animals around the arena with different feeling words on them.
Yeah.
And so her task was to pick a horse, and with the horse, go around and collect these feelings. And she didn't want to do it. She was really mad. She was like, oh, right? And but she did, and the horse did not have a lead rope or a halter on it, because but she was able to get this horse to follow her because she had this relationship and this connection with this horse. And she collected all these stuffed animals, and they got really big, right? And she's like, I did it. She comes over to my equine specialist and I, and at the time we had another mental health professional. And she's like, I did it. And we're like, okay, so let go of all that. Well, first we said, what is that like for you? And she says, well, it's a little overwhelming because she's got all these things here, right? And the horse is patiently standing right next to her. And we said, well, just let go of all of that. And she's like, I can't. And she's frozen, right? She's like, she's terrified. I can't. And so we said, well, what's underneath that? She's like, well, they're not mine. I'm like, oh, whose emotions are they? And she's like, well, I just can't. She's starting to get really, really frustrated. And so she was afraid that she'd be in trouble for putting all the stuffed animals in the dirt in the arena. And we said, well, what would the horse do? And she says, what do you mean? And we said, what would the horse do if the horse is carrying all these emotions? What do you think the horse would do if we told the horse to let it go? And she said, well, it would go. And so we said, do that. And she's like, really? And I said, yes. And so she goes, and she lets all these emotions go all over the ground. And for the first time in a year, I saw her smile.
Oh, wow.
And I had never seen her smile before. And it was bright and beautiful. And then all of a sudden she doubles over, and she's doubled over on the ground. And she can't breathe. And she's like, what's going on? So we get her over to sit down on a stool. And at that time, because it was very early in my career, the other licensed mental health professional was an expert in trauma. And she was able to explain to all of us there what had just happened was that her nervous system was not familiar with this experience of happiness and joy and release. So the nervous system went into protection, and all of her blood went to her major extremities, left her stomach, left her head, made her lightheaded and nauseous.
Oh,
and so
wow.
she was over, right? So we were able to sit with her and explain to her what had just happened and get her some water and start regulating her nervous system. And the horses, interestingly enough, surrounded her, right?
Oh, that's so
And was present.
beautiful.
And so then she relaxed, and she was able to leave in a very safe state, and she was happy. And the next week she comes back and she says, Stacey, last week was the best day of my entire life. And I was like, oh, that's fabulous. And it gets better, because then she says, and that was a Wednesday. And Thursday was also a good day. It was a pretty good day. Friday, not so much. But I was able to remember Wednesday. And I was able to remember Wednesday. And so that started that healing process of being able to remember what happiness felt like in her body, right?
Yeah.
And to also understand her own nervous system is there to protect her, and that the ways that it has been protecting her in the past don't normally necessarily help her now, and she can learn new ways to do that. And so that's what the horses and EMDR and bilateral stimulation help our nervous system with. So that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing that. That was such a powerful story.
It really is. That's why I love the work that we do. I feel very privileged to be able to do this work. I consider it sacred that people let us in to share this moment with them.
Yeah.
and it's what Anam Cara means. It's I named Anam Cara that specifically because it's Gaelic, and I'm Irish, and it means soul friend. So the Irish have a belief that everyone is born with a soul friend, and that is someone that journeys with you on a path of self-discovery. And horses are like that for me, without judgment or advice. So that's pretty much what happened in that scenario, right? The horses were right there with her while she came to that self-realization of what happiness
That's really
feels.
beautiful. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So what are some of the other populations that you work with, with the horses?
So we work with all populations. I specialize in healing from trauma. So we work primarily with, right now we're working with veterans and with youth at residential treatment facilities, and drugs and alcohol, suicidality, and self-harm behaviors and eating disorders. So I have other people on the team that specialize in each of those populations. So I did my advanced practicum and internship at the Veterans Center so that I could specifically, it was really important to me that I developed that cultural competency to work with that population.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's really important because there's so many cultural specific things nuances that we as civilians don't possibly understand. And I knew at the time I was getting my degree that I didn't have that. And I wanted to work with the population. And the only way to get that without enlisting is to immerse yourself in it. So, and I couldn't enlist. So.
That was an option. Right? So what are some of the models that inform your work?
So the EGALA model, the Equine Assisted Growth and Learning Association, is the model that we use for our equine assisted psychotherapy. I absolutely loved that work. Allowing horses to be horses and seeing them engage or not engage, and how that impacts the process is, they never cease to amaze me. So that's one of them. Trauma-informed cognitive behavior therapy, mindfulness-based, and DBT. So those are primarily, and somatic experiencing. So I just started my somatic experiencing training. It's a 3-year commitment, but I absolutely am fascinated by how the brain and the nervous system and the body complement the cognitive work that we do.
Can you speak a little bit more to somatic experiences? Because some people in the audience might not know what a somatic experience is.
So somatic experiencing was originally, well, Peter Levine has written a number of books about somatic experiencing, and it's also Bessel van der Kolk's work, The Body Keeps the Score. So those two works have really impacted my own but my own background, so where I'm coming from. And
oh no, we lost her. Don't worry, folks, we'll bring her back. See if she'll pop back in. As you can see, there are many powerful effects that working with horses can have on people, all sorts of different populations. We're really lucky to have the work that people do.
All right, so somatic experiencing is a culmination of, well, from my perspective, a culmination of Peter Levine's work, which is where I'm getting the training from, and then Bessel van der Kolk's work has been just foundational in how it has changed my whole perception on how people heal from trauma.
Nice.
So my experience has been that cognitive talk therapy is fabulous. Like, I am a talk therapist, right? So I love it. At the same time, it only takes us so far. So we can comprehend why we do certain things, or what had happened, right? So we have a cognition about it. But somewhere, oftentimes, particularly with individuals that have PTSD, we can comprehend it, and yet the symptoms will still arise years later. They'll come back. And so what I've been learning is that that we can comprehend it and have a cognition, but until our bodies can heal, and until we don't know it, right? So there's that connection between body, mind, spirit. That is so important. So somatic experiencing helps us feel it in our bodies, and helps that healing process happen, not just cognitively, but a felt sense. And so oftentimes I'll ask clients, well, where do you feel that in your body? And they don't know, right? They feel it here. And I'm like, well, that's oftentimes because as trauma survivors, we can disconnect from our physical body. We often disassociate, or we just can get very cognitive.
Right.
So integrating what our body is telling us has been so important in the healing process. And we don't even really fully have to cognitively understand it, right? We just have to honor it. Okay, so where do I feel that anger in my body? Oh, wow, I feel it right here. Well, where do I feel less angry? Oh, I feel it here, right? So we get to honor that nervous system response, and then the body knows how to heal itself. And the nervous system and our brains are trying to keep us safe. So it does a really good job. It just sometimes gets stuck there.
No, that's fascinating. It makes me think of the work, like when we talk about breath work and embodiment work.
Yes, exactly. And I love how Western medicine is catching up to all the things that Eastern traditions have known for thousands of years, right? And I love how it's come from medical understanding, but also an understanding and study of animals. And that's how Peter first started, my understanding is anyway, that how he first started looking at, well, animals experience trauma all the time, and yet they don't develop PTSD. So what's different? And the difference is their bodies have a release system. So when they release that energy, they don't then develop the PTSD symptoms that humans do. And oftentimes, humans will develop this trauma response because our bodies have not been allowed to release that energy. So, for example, the shaking, when our bodies are shaking, it's a release of energy. But oftentimes, our caregivers or the medical profession don't, we stop it, right? When really we just need to release that. And I'm not a medical professional, so just a disclaimer.
No, it's totally fine. Speaking of medical aspects, do you guys take health insurance for what you do?
At this time, we do not. But it's something that I'm considering in the future. My goal is to be able to provide services to everybody, not have to turn anyone away. So that's why I started it as a nonprofit, so we can offer a sliding scale.
Nice.
And we still need to be able to pay the bills, right? So there's the balance. Yeah.
Kind of expensive to have horses.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit. Speaking of that, how many horses do you have in your herd?
We have 5. We have 3 regular size horses and 2 minis. Yeah.
Super cute. No donkeys.
We also have no donkeys yet. That's on my wish list. I would love to have a donkey.
So cute. With their big giant ears. They bring something special. Donkeys bring like a special kind of energy to the team. And,
they really do.
No, that's fantastic. Yeah. And then you're providing virtual work at this time. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. I am providing telehealth work primarily for my current clients and new clients for talk therapy. And I'm providing some telework for current clients that already have an existing relationship with the herd. But those clients tend to want to come out anyway.
I imagine that's been a pretty interesting experience with COVID.
Yeah, it's been really interesting, challenging in a different way. It's nice to be able to be outside so we can easily social distance and keep keep that distance from humans and also be able to engage with the horses. So that's been great.
Yeah, how have you been navigating that in regards to like masks and sanitizing all the different objects that you work with? I mean, that's got to be a lot to try and navigate.
It is. We have a protocol in place, so we take everybody's temperature upon arrival. We keep appointments. We have a half hour in between each appointment, so there's nobody at the same time. And then we sanitize everything in. We have a bucket. So once people have touched it, it goes in the bucket for sanitation afterwards. And then we wipe down the gates and all the stuff everybody's touched. Pens, all that kind of good stuff. So
that's a lot. How much of a drop have you seen in your clientele with COVID happening?
We actually have not seen a drop. We've seen an increase.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, I think there's a lot more like mental health, like people need help with, but yeah.
Yeah, that's been the increase, is that that people are needing some mental health support. There's been an increase in depression and anxiety, and people being stuck at home. So the ability to be outside and have that self-care has been really, really important for people. It's also we've been working a lot on ending the stigma of mental health, because there's such a stigma still. And the horses help with that to a degree. Well, not to a degree, they help with that a great deal, because people will come out to see the horses when they wouldn't necessarily go see a mental health therapist, right?
Yeah.
The other thing that they really, really like is that in the EGALA model, they don't have to talk about their trauma or their issue or why they're there. It's helpful as a clinician for me to know, but I don't need to know. It's not about whether or not I understand. I am there with my equine specialist to just simply hold the space while they discover their own solutions. And so what the horses do is the horses meet them where they're at in that moment. And so they don't have to tell me. Like, one of the challenges that people don't like when they're changing practitioners is they have to tell their whole story all over again. Right. They don't really have to, they can if they want to, of course. And when they're ready, they do. But they really are just there to spend time with the horses and see what the horses have to share with them. And that's the beauty of the model.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What's some of the science behind what it is that you do with the horses? Like, what do the horses bring that's like scientifically impacting the people?
The thing that I find fascinating is we each have an electromagnetic field, right? So, and it centers around our hearts. So, and you know this to be true, because you know when someone is standing right behind you, whether or not they've said anything, you can sense their presence, right?
Yeah. Or you tell somebody, get out of my bubble.
Right, exactly. Your personal bubble, right? And so that electromagnetic field can now be measured with science, which is pretty cool. So it's previously been referred to as an aura or your energy bubble, but now they can actually measure it. So now it's become real, right? But so it ranges for about 3 to 5 feet out from you, right? And it centers from our hearts. So our hearts are about the size of our fist, roughly. And I'm not a scientist, this is just really simplifying things. So this is about the size of our heart. And our electromagnetic field is about 3 to 5 feet out. Well, horses have a heart 5 times bigger than ours, right? So if our field is 3 to 5 feet, theirs is, 15 to 25 feet. So they can sense our presence and our emotional state from 25 feet away. And their very survival as prey animals is dependent upon being able to read their surroundings. Yeah. So they're very adept at knowing how you're feeling 25 feet away. Like, sometimes clients don't even know the horses are right there, but the horses already know how their emotional state. Yeah. Now, my horses aren't trained, they're just our horses, right?
Right.
So they'll behave based on that emotional state and that individual. So the pretense of EGALA is really, what are the horses doing now, right? And so when when the clients then have a change in their emotions, the horses change, their behavior changes. So my role is simply to say, what are the horses doing now? And then the clients then tell me their story through the horses, right?
Yeah.
It becomes an emotionally safe place to do that. So instead of saying, well, I'm really mad at my brother, it's that horse is really bullying that horse, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Do you have any specific workshops going on right now for people or for training others, practitioners, or?
we do have workshops for the public. So I'm starting, I model it after Horse Sense of the Carolinas. They've been really supportive, and I'm on their calls weekly in this pandemic stuff. But they have been doing very successfully this fall in Fridays, and so we're using that model to reach out as a free service to veterans and first responders in our area. So we're doing that this Friday, and we started that two months ago. So we're slow and steady, but it's been well received in the community. And in fact, I'm going out tonight to go do a presentation for the American Legion. So that's one thing that's coming up. We also do herd meditations that's open to the public, and it's donation based. And it's a great way to come and be outside and be with the horses and just be, right?
That's fantastic.
And then we do some horse-powered reading, which is just another kind of, it's different from a trauma response, but it's really fun. It reaches out to kids that struggle with reading, and use the horses as their reading buddies.
Aww.
And it's a 4 to 5, it's a 4 to 5 day workshop with kids, and they learn things like how to overcome challenges, how to develop that stick-to-itness. You end up enjoying reading, where reading was once something they hated doing. Now they have this reading buddy, right, that they really enjoy reading. So those are some of the things that we offer.
I love that.
And then I also forgot, we're starting a 12-week group for veterans this Thursday. So it's through the Department of Veterans Affairs in the local vet center, and we are doing a 12-week group for how to manage intense anger, like intense emotions such as anger. So I'm working with up to 10 veterans, and incorporating the horses and some of the neurofeedback stuff. So we're looking forward to that.
Wow, that'll be amazing. I can't wait to hear more about that. Hopefully I'll be able to come and film some of that.
Yeah.
With promotional shorts. So in the description, we'll have links to the different programs that Stacey is offering to everybody. And it's been such a pleasure to get to interview you today, Stacey.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. I always have one last question for people before we end up, which is, who inspires you?
Oh, wow. Who inspires me?
Yes.
My clients inspire me for sure. All of them. It is incredible the work that they do, and the tenacity and strength that they have, because the work that this work is hard work, you know.
Yeah.
So getting in touch with who we are and challenging those negative core beliefs is hard. Yeah. And getting back to some of those memories and childhood stuff is uncomfortable, and really requires some tenacity and some stick-to-itness. So my clients really inspire me. I love the work that I do, and I'm really blessed to be able to do it. My parents inspire me. My grandmother is with me always, and so there's a number of people in the mental health profession and in the horse industry that inspire me, and I'd be remiss if I started listing them. So I know I forget somebody.
That's really beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing all of that, and for your time and everything that you do for your community. You're obviously making a really big impact with everything that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, my friend. All right, ladies and gentlemen, everybody out there, thank you so much for watching today. And until next time, we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.